Picture a restaurant as a living system. Ideas become dishes, dishes become experiences, and experiences hopefully become profit. But between let's serve dinner and a guest taking that very first bite, there is a maze of people, supplies, and decisions. Chefs, servers, bussers, deliveries, prep lists, inventory counts, and precise timing. The ingredients themselves traveled miles through a giant web of logistical systems before reaching that plate. Meanwhile, rent and utilities keep ticking like a metronome, fixed, expensive, and unforgiving, while your capacity to serve customers swings wildly with demand. The reality? Running a restaurant is one of the most complex and expensive businesses on earth. But here's the thing. What if this overwhelming maze could actually be tamed? Today, we are dissecting the anatomy of restaurant efficiency. 9 powerful strategies to optimize the back end so you can keep the doors open, even when business gets unpredictable. Here is the central challenge, what I call the restaurant profit paradox. Your biggest expenses are rent, utilities, baseline overhead. They are locked in stone, month after month, whether you are packed to the walls or completely empty. But your money-making capacity? That is as unpredictable as the weather. On Wednesday night, you are turning tables as fast as you can. On Monday night, you are paying staff to stand around. And on Sunday, the rhythm changes by the hour. The restaurant does not fail because the food is bad. It fails because the operation cannot flex. This volatility is not just frustrating, it is the number one reason restaurants fail. So the challenge becomes, how do we match staffing, menu, and costs to reality without hurting the guest experience or bleeding cash? And that sets us up perfectly for the next question. Why do the usual ways of running a restaurant so often collapse under pressure? Here's the gap. Most restaurants are still running on rigid habits. Habits that work when everything is stable, but break the moment the environment shifts. If everyone is salaried, payroll becomes a fixed monthly commitment, even when Monday night is a ghost town. If your menu is enormous, you are carrying ingredients and prep labor for items that barely sell. If you buy inventory in big bulk loads, you end up with cash sitting on shelves, or worse, expiring before it ever reaches a plate. And if orders, deliveries, and inventory are tracked manually, you do not see the problems until they have already become expensive emergencies. These old playbooks create what we call the rigidity trap. You cannot scale down when times are tough, and you cannot scale up efficiently when times are good. It is like wearing a straitjacket while trying to run a marathon. Traditional operations are optimized for normal, but restaurants live in volatility. So what does a truly flexible, resilient operation actually look like? Let us build it, piece by piece. So here's the breakthrough, a 9-pillar optimization framework that treats your restaurant as a living, adaptive system instead of a static machine. This is not a list of random tips. It is a comprehensive methodology where every element reinforces the others. First, you build a flexible payroll model. Keep only key roles on salary and shift the rest to hourly so staffing can expand or contract with real demand. Second, you track demand patterns, learning which nights surge and which nights slump, and use that data to drive every other decision. Third, you redesign the menu and inventory together. Protect your best sellers, cut low-profit, high-labor items, and swap expensive inputs for smart alternatives. Fourth, you modernize with technology so the operation runs on visibility, not guesswork. Fifth, you diversify who you serve and how you earn. Sixth, you strengthen supplier relationships for better terms and market intelligence. Seventh, you streamline processes using lean principles. Eighth, you craft promotions that create real value without cheapening your brand. And ninth, you stay perpetually prepared. Think of it as upgrading from a flip phone to a smartphone. Same basic function, but infinitely more powerful. Now let me show you what happens when you actually deploy these strategies. Once the system changes, the first improvements show up in 3 places: cash, speed, and control. With flexible payroll, labor stops being a blunt fixed cost. On slow Monday nights, the restaurant runs at 50% staffing and still covers full service by having the floor manager double as a food runner, cutting labor costs by 30 to 50% during off-peak hours without sacrificing the guest experience. With menu trimming and smart substitutions, prep hours drop dramatically. One restaurant we studied had 15 desserts requiring 2 full-time pastry cooks. By trimming to their top 5 best sellers, they cut labor to one part-time employee and reduced food waste significantly. Inventory shrinks when local on-demand sourcing replaces long lead national orders, freeing up cash that was previously sitting on shelves. Technology turns confusion into a clean queue. Purchases, inventory, and delivery orders get tracked and routed instead of managed in a panic. And with supplier concessions and lean processes, the restaurant buys not just ingredients, it buys flexibility, better terms, and a cleaner workflow. Next, the big question: how do these operational wins translate into real growth and lasting resilience? Here is where it gets truly powerful. Operational efficiency is not just about cutting costs, it is about buying resilience. When your team and inventory are tuned to demand, you can pursue revenue growth without risking chaos. Diversifying your audience means you are not relying on a single demographic. A vegan ice cream shop, for example, should not just depend on millennial foot traffic. They can market heavily to health-conscious mothers building better habits for their toddlers, nearly doubling their reachable market. And diversifying revenue streams means you are not trapped by foot traffic at all. Delivery, catering, or even a wholesale deal with a local retailer can keep cash moving on slow weeks. Then there are value-based promotions, discounting without looking desperate. Instead of a cheap 2-for-1 deal that erodes your brand, a restaurant can say desserts are compliments of the chef, creating perceived luxury while nudging total spend upward. Starbucks used this kind of loyalty thinking to generate over $1 billion in working capital. And here is a hidden gem. Your suppliers are not just vendors. They are intelligence sources. That rep who delivers your produce knows market trends, competitor moves, and cost-saving opportunities you will never find on a spreadsheet. Meet them for coffee monthly, and those conversations are worth thousands in saved negotiations. These strategies together create multiple profit centers and information advantages that traditional restaurants simply do not have. What we are really talking about here is a total paradigm shift, from reactive hustle to continuous optimization. The old model treats your business like a machine with fixed settings. The new model treats it like a living organism that adapts, evolves, and strengthens with every challenge. This is not a one-and-done overhaul. It is a habit of constant improvement baked into the DNA of how you run things. Your team watches patterns, which nights surge, which nights slump, and adjusts before problems appear. The menu is treated as a living tool, revisited for profitability in both good times and tough ones. Technology is adopted when things are stable, so you are not scrambling when things go sideways. Suppliers are kept close, not just for pricing, but for the flexibility and market intelligence they carry. And processes are so streamlined that peak time performance does not collapse when conditions shift, whether that shift is an economic downturn or a brand new competitor opening right down the street. New competitor moves in, your flexible systems let you pivot in days, not months. My motto: always be improving. Preparedness becomes the competitive advantage. Fewer surprises, faster pivots, steadier cash flow. Now let us wrap everything up into the action plan you can start using today. Let us bring it all together. Here's the playbook, distilled into 9 moves you can start acting on today. 1. Build a flexible payroll structure so labor scales with real demand, not a fixed monthly number. 2. Identify your demand patterns so every other decision is grounded in data. 3. Optimize your menu by protecting your best sellers and cutting low-margin, high-labor complexity. 4. Align inventory to on-demand and local sourcing so cash stays in your pocket, not on your shelves. 5. Invest in modern technology to track purchasing, inventory, and delivery orders so you are managing with visibility, not gut feel. 6. Diversify your audience by reaching new customer segments you have been ignoring. 7. Diversify your revenue streams through delivery, wholesale, catering, and partnerships so slow foot traffic weeks do not become crises. 8. Strengthen supplier relationships to unlock better terms, concessions, and market intelligence. 9. Streamline processes with lean thinking, craft promotions that build value without cheapening your brand, and keep expenses disciplined with efficiency upgrades. Then loop it, review, adjust, measure, and repeat. Because the restaurants that survive the next decade will not be the biggest or the flashiest, they will be the most adaptive. Complexity and cost do not have to be your enemies. When you optimize systematically, those fixed expenses become manageable investments, and variable capacity becomes your strategic advantage. Build this system, stay prepared, and turn your restaurant into the success story it deserves to be. Connect with Forks for the experienced accounting professionals your restaurant needs. Details in description below.